All right, I want to thank everybody for being here. Give us a moment to find our seats. And we have three parts to our program. Today we have our regular budget and finance agenda, and then we have a quick question and answer session with the audit committee, with our audit department on two audits that they've recently completed. And then finally, a presentation by Procurement and Griffin and Strong on minority business practices in Nashville. So with that being said, we'll start on with our agenda. Some of our participants are here, and then they'll be on their way. Monday, August the 14th, Budget and Finance. We start with Resolution 2017-832. Councilman Anthony Davis, as a sponsor, authorizes the Director of Public Property to acquire real property by purchase as part of the Clean Water Nashville Overflow Abatement Program. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded, and Councilor Weiner.
If someone from that department could just speak a little more specifically to the nature of this, I'd appreciate it. And was that Bill 823 or 832?
23. 823 on my material.
Okay.
823. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And here we have experts.
Good afternoon. I'm Greg Ballard. I'm one of the engineers with Metro Water Services. The Clean Water Nashville program is our program to eliminate sewer overflows from rainfall infiltration into the sewer lines. The particular project at our Gibson Creek pumping station, which is immediately adjacent to this property, is to build about a 10 million gallon equalization basin that we will fill with sewage and rainwater mix that has leaked into the sewer pipes during a rainfall event, and we will hold that water until such time as the flows in our wastewater collection system go down. Then we will be able to drain that back and send it to the treatment plant for treatment. That avoids that water being discharged into the streams and into the river ultimately, so it keeps our waterways clean.
Thank you. How often do we need to purchase parcels of property in order to make this happen? Is that a pretty routine event?
It is not extremely frequently. We've purchased, I believe, 5 parcels in the last 5 years. This is the last one in the current plan.
And what are the criteria that lead us to need to do that? Is it that we're running out of opportunity to have that space? Is it that because of Nashville's growth?
We are trying to locate them where there is property available. We have a variety of different types of projects that we can do to eliminate the overflows. The most effective in costs per gallons removed wastewater discharges is to build equalization tanks. However, we prefer to do rehabilitation projects to keep the water from getting into the pipes in the first place. So we use those in conjunction with also pipeline projects to provide more capacity. So where we have a piece of land available that's adjacent to a pump station where we have a problem, then it becomes a possibility to build an EQ tank.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's all I had.
Thank you, Council Lady. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to just kind of expand, if I may, the gentleman who was just speaking. He says that 5 under the current plan. Obviously, and I think Council Lady Weiner stated, with all the growth that Nashville's been experiencing, do we have a forecast of what may be coming down the road, or are we pretty much so closing the book on this chapter? And do we have any idea of what might lie ahead for us?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, there are 2 plans that were developed and submitted to EPA in 2011. A CAP-ER, which is Capacity Assurance Plan, Engineering Plan, and then long-term control plan for the combined sewers. And this is a part of the plan for the separated sewer system. So it is a part of the plan we've had since 2011 to mitigate the overflows. When we do projects like this, we also take into account growth that is occurring. But since this particular project is a wet weather only project, the growth doesn't really have any impact on it. So it's simply a matter of a way to collect and store temporarily the overflow wastewater and hold it in our system so that we can treat it rather than discharge it.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor of 823, please say aye. 823 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-824, Councilman Syracuse, the sponsor, approves a Friends of Two Rivers Mansion grant to the Metro Parks and Recreation Department to provide funding for everyone for one employee's salary to provide administrative support at Two Rivers Mansion. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 824, please say aye. 824 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-825, Councillady Murphy, as the sponsor, approves an amendment to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to establish career services for eligible adults, youth, and dislocated workers with careers to employment, education, training, and support services to succeed in the labor market. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 825, please say aye. 825 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-826, Councillady Murphy's the sponsor, approves an amendment to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to establish programs to prepare adult service recipients for employment. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 826, please say aye. 826 is recommended to the council. Resolution RS 2017-827, Councillady Allen and Elrod, Councilman Elrod as the sponsors, approves a Keep America Beautiful Lowe's Community Partner Grant to Metro Public Works to plant trees and daffodils at schools during the Hands on Nashville Day and Nashville Tree Foundation's Reliefing Day. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 827, please say aye. 827 is recommended to the council. Bills on second reading. Bill 2017-829, Councillady Johnson, Karen Johnson, and Councillady Vercher are the sponsors. Amends the Metro Code to require the Department of Public Works to replace at no cost to the homeowner government-supplied waste containers that are stolen, lost, or damaged beyond repair. We have a letter from the sponsor who's unable, Councillady Johnson, unable to attend this meeting, requests that the following legislation be substituted and then deferred indefinitely so I can work with Metro Public Works on an alternative plan. I'm puzzled a little bit on the substitution. Do we pass the substitution? All right. So is there a motion for the substitute and a second for the substitute? And here, Councilman Glover, do you wish to say something about the substitute and then the deferral?
Yeah, Mr. Jameson, help me. I mean, so first of all, we're passing a substitute, but then we're deferring it indefinitely. What's the purpose?
The sponsors want to have further discussions with Public Works. This was the trash cart replacement
Right.
program. There is, the substitute is a housekeeping change to the caption, so she just wants to get it correct, and then when they move on for further discussions, they'll be starting with the correct draft.
Okay, and so I pushed my button before the indefinite deferral, but while we're here and since we're voting on a substitute, government-supplied waste containers, do we, the government, own the waste containers, or is it owned by the contractors that we use that provide the services?
So historically, under the code, the property owner is responsible for any loss or damage
Right.
to the cart. We had the advantage for about 10 years of a contractor, third-party vendor, who agreed under their contract to provide replacement carts when they were lost, stolen, or damaged. That contract ended, I think, in 2013, and since then we've reverted back to requirement for the responsibility for the property owner to replace it. The carts themselves are cost, I think, $46.50. Once purchased by the owner, they belong to the owner, but the code, again, the code language itself puts the onus on the property owner to replace it, not Metro.
Okay, so I'm still not very clear here. Does the city of Nashville, Davidson County, do we own that container? Because it says government-supplied waste containers. So, I mean, maybe I'm being nitpicky here, but do we own them? Does who owns the container?
Metro provides them at the beginning to every individual property If lost or stolen, it's on the property owner to replace them. We don't provide them a second one.
Okay, is it Public Works? Is this function of Public Works then?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So all in favor of the substitute, please say aye. The substitute is passed, and then the request by sponsor to defer indefinitely, which would not require a vote.
Yeah.
Right, okay, then that's,
No, you go ahead.
oh, all right, and then is there a motion to defer indefinitely? And a second, all in favor, say aye. It is, 829 is deferred, substituted, and then deferred indefinitely. Bill 2017-836 authorizes the Industrial Development Board to accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to Keystone Automotive Industries. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded, and I see several speakers. Councilman Mendez.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to follow up with the conversation I was having with Mr. Wiltshire right before the meeting started. I'm used to, in these pilots, at least the ones we've done for MDHA, of having the contract attached and referenced in the ordinance or resolution for us to be approving the form of the contract. And I think this one, I'm told that maybe the contract was filed with the bill. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's no reference in the ordinance to the form of the contract that we'd be approving. And I believe I'm going to vote yes for this on second reading, but before I would vote yes on third reading, I would definitely need the bill amended to include the form of the contract that we're approving and be able to take a look at it. And so I mentioned that to Mr. Wiltshire and Ms. Darby, and I just wanted to mention it to everybody else also.
Okay, Councilman. Mr. Wiltshire?
I'll just confirm that I think it was, but if it wasn't, we'll make sure that we'll certainly get a copy to everyone. It was filed as an exhibit, so you all should have it, and that's a reasonable expectation. Just nerdy legal point, I think the technically what this body does is enable the Industrial Development Board to negotiate a pilot agreement. That's technically all you have the authority to do, but practically speaking, what has happened is we have fully negotiated those in advance and provided them to this body, and so, I mean, we will absolutely do that if it wasn't done in this case.
All right, so let me see your nerdy legal point and ask nerdy legal questions. So does that mean it's...
What door did I open?
Does that mean there's a difference between this and the MDHA pilot agreements?
I'm going to defer that to Ms. Darby
Well,
or Mr. Cooper or someone else.
They're all shaking their head, yes, it is different.
It is different.
So regardless of if it's different, my position is I want to approve the form of the contract, and I would like an overt reference to the form of the contract in the ordinance rather than just attached.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So let me, hold on, I want to make sure I got the last piece. It sounds like you're asking us to file an amendment.
Yeah, I think you guys are going to amend it anyway because there's a random word that's wrong in there, issuer, and
So
which
we'll
is
just amend it and refer to Exhibit A and then file this as Exhibit A.
correct.
Got it. Yep.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Glover.
So let me come back to, I guess, to Attorney Cooper or you, Mr. Wilshire, either one. So what is our actual role here? What is the council's actual role?
The council is delegating the authority to the Industrial Development Board to negotiate the pilot because the IDB is who actually enters into the agreement with the company
Okay.
and becomes the owner of the property during the pilot period.
Okay, but in reality, when they were talking about we're authorizing them to negotiate, in reality, the negotiation has already been completed, correct? Okay, thank you, Chair.
Yes, it is complete.
Thank you, Councilman. I asked Mr. Wilshire earlier if he wouldn't mind that the Wilshire rule on incentives has been but for, that the project would not go ahead but for this money. And so I've asked him if he would give the council his outline of the but for aspect of this $1 million abatement.
I will first protest the definition of the Wiltshire rule. I I appreciate the chair's effort to create a series of rules. However, Chair is accurate that one of the requirements that the administration has looked at in determining these is to make sure that we understand that this is needed in order to accomplish the public policy ends. And in this case, one of the provisions is that but for the incentive, the company wouldn't be doing the development here. That's just a sort of logical thing. And I can confirm in this case, based upon conversations with the company, the negotiations which extended over, unfortunately, about 9 months as they were evaluating a variety of different alternatives, that it was the conclusion of the administration that this was required in order to retain Keystone LKQ as an employer in Nashville and to have them construct this new headquarters and further expand, adding the 150 other additional employees. And I see a representative. I don't know if there's anything additional that the representative of the company wants to add, or maybe that's not my role to recognize him.
No, please. If you'd identify yourself.
Yeah, thank you. My name's Chris Bowles. I'm an attorney here in Nashville with Bradley, Arant, Volt Cummings. I represent LKQ, Keystone Automotive Industries. Unfortunately, the company representatives, Cy Finkelstein's flight, wasn't able to get here in time for the meeting, but he will be here and will be attending the meeting tomorrow. But I'm here to answer any questions. I believe you have Matt's memo outlining the scope of the jobs and the scope of the abatement, but I am here to answer any questions.
Well, thank you. I have a quick question. In part, the meeting is going to spend, our committee meeting is going to spend some time on this. What is the minority participation aspects of this pilot?
So I believe this is consistent with ECD's overall program, but this would be a requirement on the contractor and the developer, who in this case is actually a different entity than the company receiving the incentive, and I can describe that in more detail if necessary. But a requirement to come up with a program to be approved by the mayor's office, specifically economic and community development, to engage with a target of, I believe it's 30% DBE. It's 20%.
It's 20, but we'll take 30. Do I hear 40? 35, 40? Do I hear 40? That's not a joking matter. It's 20%.
I understand. And actually, the conversations we have had with the mayor's office is that a lot of companies in the past have been able to attain up to 30%. It's certainly the company's intention to do everything it can to increase DBE participation.
Okay. Well, I know later on in this committee meeting, we'll be asking how that is demonstrated, the 20% participation. All right, thank you. And anything else you'd like to say on the but-for aspect of this? Matt, okay, thank you. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor of 8, yeah, oh, sorry, Bob. Oh, went off. There.
Sorry, there was one other thing I wanted to ask about. Mr. Wiltshire, we exchanged some emails, and I would like just for maybe you describe the piece where new jobs can be provided by companies that are unrelated to Keystone so long as they're housed in the same facility and they're outsourced jobs. How does that work?
Sure. So this is actually the definition of employee, which is typically used for the $500 per job or the up to $500 per job grant, that we have defined employees to include dedicated employees, dedicated positions that are not necessarily employees of the company, so long as they make more than the average wage for the Nashville market. This actually originally came out of the agreement that this council, or I guess a prior council, did for UBS, when UBS was adding 1,000 positions across the street, and said, look, if we decide to outsource our IT department or our whatever department, those are still jobs that would not be here but for UBS having this here, but just for a corporate decision, we decided to outsource. We want to count them too. And we said, yeah, but we're not going to count somebody who just, happens to show up every third Thursday. So the requirement is that the employees, or it's not employees, but the individuals be based on site, be dedicated, to the project, even if they're an IBM badged employee, but they be sort of on-site and dedicated to UBS in this example, or I guess it would be an IBM employee on-site dedicated, but be dedicated and make more than the average wage for the Nashville market. And that's been the standard definition of employee that we've utilized.
All right, and this is one of the reasons why I'd like to see the contract, because that language in this ordinance seems to be referring to the entity as opposed to that the entity would have to occupy the space as opposed to the employee working out of the space. And I'm sure your agreement does a great job of covering that, but I'd like to see it. And is there, like I get it if there's an IT department or a copy service or the coffee shop that's outsourced. Is there any requirement about how the balance of that works? I mean, could they outsource, have outsourced 90% of the jobs, and so long as they're on site, it still all counts? Or does it really need to be an ancillary service like what you described?
That's a great question, not one that I've contemplated previously. To a certain extent, because the limit of employee and under that definition is one that makes more than the average wage for the Nashville market, I mean, I guess it's possible. I mean, it is a more restrictive definition of employee if they are not badged by that corporation. So I don't know that it would be in their interest to do that simply for the purposes of this agreement. If, however, the company chose for whatever reason to do that, I mean, I have not previously put a restriction. We have not previously put a restriction on it that said at least 75% of the employees have to be badged UBS. We've really been, or Keystone. We've simply been focused on getting as many good, high-paying jobs as we can and not this distinction. But, I mean, I can't imagine a company would ever have an issue with that. I mean, we could certainly look at doing that in the future that says no more than 50% or 25% or some percentage of any employee count. And practically speaking, we haven't run into that, right? Like, but we could certainly add it as another provision. There's no reason not to.
All right, thank you.
And then I, for the company representative, had a quick question. Was hearing from Mr. Wilshire earlier that we don't have any knowledge of the state incentive that's being given with this. Would you be able to share any of the state's incentive?
Unfortunately, I was actually just thinking about that beforehand. I am filling in for the attorney who worked on the state incentive, so I don't have, I know they're receiving one, but I don't have any details on that.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Glover?
When Councilman Mendez was asking the question, then Mr. Wilshire made a comment. I'm sitting here trying to picture how do you outsource and it saves you money. I mean, if it's a very specialized area, I could perhaps see that. But give me the definition again of if they outsource it, it has to be, the salary has to be higher than the, did you say Nashville average or national?
Nashville.
What are we basing that on?
Nashville. Honestly, I mean, it was a little bit of a, so, I mean, at the time, it was actually during a lot of the Affordable Care Act stuff, and so we were actually looking for essentially making sure that people had health care, and in addition to that, there was sort of an added incentive that the people had to be higher wage jobs, essentially, and so we said, look, you can do that, but we're only going to count for the purposes of the $500, and this all started with the $500 per job thing. Essentially, for the $500 per job, the person needs to make more than the average of the Nashville wage, and then that also implies if you're a full-time employee and you're making more than $42,000, then you probably also have health care, and so it was a sort of a number we felt good about, saying who counts as an employee in terms of being able to count in terms of getting the $500 per job.
Okay, that just, I've, in all the conversations we've ever had, I don't believe I've ever heard that particular comment before, or sentence, or however you want to say it. So that one just caught me off guard a little bit, that it's there. So anyway, thank you, Chair.
Well, listening to the discussion, there's a question that I have, maybe I need to make the motion, is do we pass on second reading and re-refer it back to the committee for some of these questions? So if I make the motion and then there's a second,
Actually, if you don't mind, Chair, sorry to interrupt you, but Mr. Jameson, can it be amended on third?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well then, all right.
okay. So the motion is to pass, but with a re-referral back to this committee in 2 weeks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It is approved and re-referred back to this committee with further questions. BL 2017-837, Council Lady Vercher and Karen Johnson of the sponsors authorizes the acquisition of property for the purpose of building a new Metro Nashville Police Precinct. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, Councilman Glover, we just wanted to make sure that that was from the last discussion. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor say aye. 837 is recommended to the council. Now, the two other items of business before the committee, we'll get on to the Griffin and Strong presentation. Mr. Swan, if you didn't mind, the audit department has recently submitted two separate audits, the audit of Autumn Assisted Living Partners and Vision Real Estate Investment Corp contracts. I think it's important for this committee to have a chance to engage with our auditor on this, and Councilman Leonardo and Councilman Schulman in particular were forces behind requesting this audit. And also there's an audit of the First Tennessee Park. And actually, Mr. Swan, if you didn't mind just quickly bringing us up to date on the status of those audits.
Okay. Yes, I'm Mark Swan, the Metropolitan Auditor. The first audit of the First Tennessee Ballpark construction was issued in April of this year. One thing, reason we did the audit was because of the overruns in the project. What we discovered is that because we spent $70 million to build the ballpark with the land acquisition and the construction project, we had to spend another $21 million in infrastructure improvements. So the total outlay, because of the decision to do a ballpark, was over $91 million. And so from there, we were able to see that our owner management company, Capital Project Solutions and Systems and Gobble Hayes, was representing the Metro's best interest, and during the project, making sure that the money that was being spent for items related to the ballpark. And then but we did see some things with our contractor, Bell Harmony, where we tried to verify some of the construction costs for the subcontractors, and one of the things we found out that all the unsuccessful bidders documentation was not available, even though there was information available related to the bids as a summary document, and we were able to confirm unsuccessful bids with various vendors. So that was the main part about that one. And then Autumn Hills was issued just recently last month in July. This is where the J.P. Knowles Assisted Living Center was, in essence, being divested from the Metro Hospital Authority and the Metro government. And it was went through a process of trying to find potential developers. Along with that was some land associated with it. One of the things that happened is kind of, I guess you could say, the ball kind of dropped in some areas from monitoring the contract. The contract was, and the financial records were set up that the way the transaction happened, we had actually had a discontinued operation, so it went off our financial statement. So that kind of put it off the radar from there. But what we did find out that the intent was for the operator to buy the property for $500,000 in the next 2 year time, or even before the operating agreement went with it. That did not happen, so the entity ended up leasing the facility for $1,000 a year and then operating the facility as a private company. But from there, well, we did find out that when we got to look at the records, there were no records for accounting records from it. So there's no accounting system. So we had to do a scope limitation and try to come up with a best estimate of what the expenditures were and where some of the money went to. Because one of the things he did get was a $40,000 a month supplement from the hospital authority to help cover losses in the first year, and then $30,000 a year in the second year, $30,000 a month in the second year. But what we were able to get, the operator operated the facility for a little over 2.5 years, along with a for-profit company and then a nonprofit a nonprofit company that was organized later on. In that time, they spent about $4.6 million, or is estimated to be, to run the facility at this level of care that they were providing. We estimated with the supplement, they probably received another $4.6 million. However, they still owed creditors at the end a little over $500,000 for, we could confirm, and another potential $200,000. So the question is, the accounting records are not real descriptive to let you know how the money was spent, and the $400,000 we owe creditors is kind of where that mystery is. You could say is unaccounted for in any way, and I'll leave it at that if there's any questions.
Thank you. Councilman Leonardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here, too. I have just a series of questions here. So when you go in to conduct these audits, and you're saying that you didn't have any documentation to look at, what exactly did you have, and where did you get the information?
Okay, well, I guess I should clarify that. We did have all the bank statements and checks going out. We didn't have invoices supporting the check. And so, in the summary, we did try to categorize expenditures that were spent. A lot of times there would be a notation on the check. There would be no invoice or a reference to an invoice number to let you know that that's what it actually was spent for. Because of their lack of credit with vendors, they were having to get money orders and cashier's checks and pay cash all the time. So it was.
And since you don't have subpoena power, your body does not, does it?
Correct.
Okay, and so this information that you're relying upon was cooperating individuals within the prior operators?
Yes, I should have mentioned that the prior operators provided us the bank statements for our review.
Okay, and I noticed one thing that when I was looking through your audit report, and I'm new at this and I haven't seen a lot of audit reports, but I noticed that you didn't interview any witnesses. Do you guys not interview witnesses when you're looking for things like this, former employees or the like?
We were conducting an audit. We did interview several of the employees and some of the contractors through the process, and hospital authority officials and finance officials here.
Okay, and what explanation was given to you? I mean, obviously, your audit report says that $307,000 worth of capital improvements were made, but yet, what was the response you received to verify that amount?
Well, the capital improvements, we were able to verify that about $70,000 did not incur, or there's no support. Again, there's no support for it to tell you that it actually occurred. But there were things that were done. They had to do related to interviews. Well, we interviewed the operators, and they, from testimonial evidence, said that they did have to do some plumbing repairs and some life safety issues repairs as they went along in some air conditioning units.
And again, that was testimonial in nature. There weren't records necessarily depicting that. You're just taking the word for it.
Right. And we do have checks going to vendors that we saw.
Okay, and when you're talking about like the rental payments of $1,000 a month, you notice there was only one rental payment made?
Well, it's only $1,000 a year is what it is.
$1,000 a year, okay.
But we were only to find one check to Metro.
Okay, and did you go and speak with the current operator of the Knowles home to have kind of a controller or variable, or to see what had been done? Have you met with those folks?
We've met with Mr. Brune, Dr. Brune, yes,
Okay.
Handsome Care.
And what would your recommendation be to keep something like this from happening in the future? What could the Metro Council do? What can the administration do?
Well, we had two recommendations, which the Finance Department has accepted. One is to do a more thorough due diligence process before we go into business with strategic partners. In this case, we could have discovered a little bit more about this company or the individuals operating this company. Wouldn't necessarily put us on full alert, but it would have made us have to ask some more questions. Just doing some background checks, doing some public document available research ahead of time. So we recommended that we do a due diligence process when we have high-risk contracts, and leaving it up to finance to define what a high-risk contract, but at least when we're dealing with services to seniors or children or other ways, an outsourcing arrangement, that we need to have some kind of a background check as part of our contracting process. And then in addition to that is we continue to, or as we do audits throughout Metro, and one of the things that's not in our full procurement cycle is a contract monitoring process as part of the procurement cycle. We don't have a good process to require that, and it's up to each department to do so. In this case, again, there was nobody really monitoring, but the reason being was because everybody thought the company was divested. It wasn't on our financial statements anymore.
And as far as the withdrawals from the ATMs, you were told that that money was used how?
Again, to help make payments to vendors, to make the milk payment, the bread money.
And were there any late filed exhibits, for lack of a better term? Is there any additional documentation that was promised to you post-audit or anything like that, that they said they had but that they couldn't produce at the time you asked?
Nothing's been produced since the audit report was issued.
Those are my questions at this juncture. I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Glover.
I would like to continue on down this line. I think it's safe to say that the care that the individuals received there probably was way below satisfactory. But is there criminal activity here? I mean, it sounds like there's embezzlement. It sounds to me, I don't know, I'm kind of simple. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Well, but one of the things I didn't mention, the resident trust funds were used to take care of operational expenses. But the residents were provided funds when they requested their monies each month, or whenever they asked, the money out of that cash was going to help pay whatever the residents.
Are we saying like a special needs trust that funds along that venture?
Well, in this case, these will be like a trust fund that's set aside like your canteen at camp funds. We did refer the report to the district attorney's office because of the resident trust fund area and the fact that we did have government monies commingled with the fund, with the supplements from the hospital authority. That's up to the district attorney to decide if there's something inappropriate going on.
I'm happy to hear that it's been referred to the district attorney because I certainly don't have the capacity or capability of making that allegation. But man, it sure sounds like that it is in the right hands now. And Chair, I hope that we carry on with that. Do we as Metro have any further liability with regards to unpaid bills? I mean, where are we in this process? And how did we get, well, I know how we got here, but where are we as far as what's our liability that still is laying out there?
I will defer to our legal director.
Metro did not incur the liabilities, so we are not responsible for any unpaid bills of the company. Metro did take steps as a result of the supplemental appropriation that the council made to ensure that the power stayed on and water and electricity and utilities were covered. But as far as the individual vendors that may have contracted with the previous operator, the recourse would be to go after that operator.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Shulman, one second. We have so many speakers here, the system is a little, there we are. Councilman Shulman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I got here a little bit late, so forgive me if I ask a question that you've already explained, but these resident trust funds, so could you explain exactly what they are? I know that residents get money out of them, but how could money be taken out of resident trust funds?
Well, the idea is that they should be set aside in a separate account and a separate accounting provide for them. In this case, there was a separate bank account set up, but the money was all transferred to the operating account to meet payroll and operational needs. And so when you look today, there's no money in those bank accounts today, well, as of January 31st.
Okay, so go back over this again. So what can the trust funds be used? Can they be taken to be used for other purposes without?
Well, I'm not an expert in assisted living. Again, there's a lot of more regulations on nursing home trust funds. There's very few regulations related, if none, related to assisted living. It's a different category. However, they can, they can be used for whatever purpose. There are situations, if you get too much a balance, that the money can be taken. I forgot the exact, if it's like over $2,000 or $2,600, that the money can be used to help pay for the, I guess, the fee that has not been collected. In other words, everybody gets a discounted fee at Knowles Home. They're not paying the full market price.
Go back again. Where do these funds come from?
Well, they will come from, it could be from a Social Security check they'll set aside, or it could be from family members who will send money in to put into their account retirement.
Okay, but if they go into a fund for the resident,
Right, separate from,
aren't they supposed to be accounted for the resident?
yes, sir.
And whose responsibility is it to take care of those funds?
That would be the operator.
Okay. And so if it's coming from the federal government, if it's coming from Social Security or retirement accounts or whatever, or it's coming from families that are paying money in to take care of the residents, there's got to be some requirements about what that money, who can touch that money and how that money is accounted for and what it can be spent on.
Well, when we've been searching, we haven't been to find anything. Hopefully, maybe the district attorney will find something that's very specific in a nursing home situation. The best I can figure, I'm a layman lawyer, not an attorney. But the best I can see, there's a fiduciary duty there, but that fiduciary duty would be with those individual residents and their family members to the operator.
I mean, so did anybody have, the operator is responsible for it, but are there any other, did you see any other documents, conservatorship, guardianship papers, power of attorneys, anything that allowed them to basically get into those accounts and spend money for purposes other than what the residents may have wanted it to be spent on?
That wasn't, well, as residents did come to request money on a weekly basis, I need $10 or $20, they provide, what we heard from testimonial evidence was that they did provide the $10 and $20 to them.
All right, so one more question about that. So if I had $2,000 in that resident trust account, and I thought I had $2,000, but it's not there, who's responsible for that?
I would say the operator is. In this case, Autumn Hills.
Okay.
But that gets back to, because of the operator being there, you're talking about liabilities. In my mind, you have to decide if there's a social responsibility to those residents, since we're the ones who privatize the operations.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I've just got a couple more questions, Mr. Chairman. The $300,000, the money that was supposed to go to improve the facility, I know that in your audit report that you know that some of that money wasn't spent on what it was supposed to have been. I mean, it was, I think there was maybe a chiller, there was a couple of other things.
A chiller and an accounting system they listed as part of their asset improvements.
Okay, so was money paid out for that? You said that you had seen that checks went out to contractors.
There were checks to other contracts, to a lot of different contracting vendors, yes. Plumbers and HVAC contractors, to accounting firms.
Okay, but what about the money that was allegedly spent for like an improvement to the chiller? Did somebody get paid for that?
Well, based on inspection, there's no improvement from the chillers made.
Yeah, that wasn't my question though. The question was, there may not have been.
Well, there was no record, so we don't, I can't tell you exactly what was, I can tell you there were contractors who were paid checks, but I can't tell you what they did.
Or if they did it, right?
Correct. I can't.
Do you have a
confirm that.
list? Do you have a list of who actually got paid?
Not, well, we didn't schedule out every individual that got paid, no, sir. No, sir. We had the list on our audit report. We do give examples of how some of the payments were made.
Right, but I'm saying, do you have, for the $300,000, do you have a list? You said that you actually did see some checks.
We do have the listing that was provided to Metro, yes, of the capital improvements.
Well, so I guess the question is, do you have a list of contractors who actually got checks written for the work?
And we could go back and, we did that at one time. I just don't remember exactly which ones.
But Metro gave you a list of what?
Of a list of what was provided by the contractor of here's how we spent monies to meet the threshold in the contract for capital improvements.
Okay, but actually it was spent by the operator. It wasn't spent by Metro.
Right. Metro did not do the improvements.
Right, the operator
was
did them.
responsible for making a certain amount of capital improvements, which I think was 300,000 or 200,000 or 100. I don't remember exactly the exact amount. I can look it up.
Well, I wouldn't mind seeing that information if that's possible.
Okay.
Two other questions. One is Hospital Authority, I know, is here, but did they not respond to your request for? I know Metro, the finance department responded, but has the Hospital Authority provided any response to the audit at this point?
No, sir.
Okay. And my last question would be, did you look at, I know that you've talked about making sure we're going back and checking vendors before we contract with them. In this solicitation process, did you go back that far to look at the actual solicitation process itself?
We looked at the report that went to the Hospital Authority from Signal Hill Capital Advisors, and it was through a process, letter trying to get providing prospectus to different people to get to invest in this venture. And my understanding that basically through the process, stepping through the process, what was only left was this Ed Street development and Autumn Hills and Signature were the only ones left in the process that were willing to continue to negotiate with us.
So it wasn't a true solicitation process in what we would think of?
No, I would say it was. It was a very extensive, extremely. That's why you paid capital, Signal Hill Capital $1 million to go find someone to take.
But was it like an RFP process? Mr. Chairman, Mr. Cooper's going to respond.
Oh, here, that's it. That's freed up. Yes.
Yes, I believe it was a two-step process, kind of an RFQ, and then proposals were submitted to Metro, and the group that was selected, it included both the Bordeaux Nursing Home and the Autumn Hills, and you had different operators for different ones. But yeah, Signal Hill handled the solicitation process.
Could we, I don't know if I've ever seen that. Could we actually get a copy of that?
Sure, yeah, we have copies of all that.
So my final question, because I'd be interested to look at the technical specs. My guess is usually with RFPs, we have technical requirements. So the question is on this one, and this goes back to Mr. Swan, and making sure that we have vendors that actually can do what they said they're going to do. I'd be interested to look at the technical specs to see what we required of a company that was going to do this work. Okay. If you can get that to us, that'd be great. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Swan, Mr. Cooper, thank you.
Thank you. We have a lot of Council Lady Vercher.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of discussion, a lot of concern. Thank you, Mr. Swan, for conducting the audit as well. So I want to make sure that I'm clear. We have payments made with no invoices. We have contractors paid, possibly with no services rendered. Is that a fair and accurate statement?
I would not say that contractors were paid with no services rendered. There were contractors paid, we just don't know what.
They did.
We can't verify what they did.
So if we don't know what they did, we can't verify what they did, how can we, with confidence, state that they did anything?
Well, that's why we have a big scope limitation in the report, just saying this is all a best estimate and using professional judgment.
Okay. So, Chair, I guess in moving forward, what provisions do we need to put in place as a body, contract monitoring, so that we don't find ourselves in this predicament again where we can't account for money, basically. Councilman Glover alluded to it earlier that Is this criminal? No, that's not for this particular body to address, and the DA will be addressing that. But we need to have some type of provisions in place so that we don't find ourselves having this same discussion in the future.
Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Henderson. Sorry, here we are. Great, Council Lady.
Thank you, Chair. To follow on with Council Lady Vercher's questions about going forward, I wonder if you could please just reiterate your two recommendations. Well, first, let me just ask for more thorough due diligence for high-risk contracts, correct? That was one of your recommendations. But you said that you left it to finance to define. So, Chair, I would suggest that we make sure that that's a written document that shows us, I mean, is that just senior facilities? What does that entail? What is a high-risk contract? But I would also ask, as it relates to, I think you also highlighted, is that correct, that as part of the procurement cycle, there is not an official process to monitor and review the work under contract? Or could you clarify that point?
Well, right now, today, if you look in the, well, put it this way, each department head is responsible for monitoring their own contracts. Some will, and some have a written monitoring plan, but I said the majority of the time when we do our audits, there's not a written monitoring plan and a periodic reporting of that monitoring.
And whose department's responsibility was it to monitor this?
That's the one, it could either be the hospital authority or finance department.
Okay, and so do you think some of the problem?
But the question, that's a big question. Nobody accepted responsibility for
All right,
the
so
contract.
The problem becomes in the ambiguity of who indeed was responsible.
Yeah, well, the supplemental money was provided by the hospital authority. So in this case, I would say the hospital authority had some obligation to monitor.
Okay, but they have not responded to your inquiries? Or?
The recommendation that we addressed to the finance department and the hospital authority, the finance department did reply with an action plan and with a date certain, and we'll have follow-up on that. The hospital authority, by their non-response, it is assumed that they are willing to take that risk, or they may come up with some other plan in the future.
Okay, my next question becomes in that, the Metro's procurement process, or RFQ/procurement process, Mr. Cooper referred to it as the two-step process, that's recently faced some scrutiny in other areas. And so I wonder if you could speak to more just kind of breaking this down. This was before my time, what was the role of Signal Hill Capital Advisors? They were paid $1 million to handle the solicitation process that they were awarded through the procurement process, or they were a facilitator for the procurement process itself?
Okay. The best I can say, do you want to say?
I don't know how Signal Hill was selected, but Metro Purchasing did not handle the process for selecting the providers. That was done, that was essentially contracted out to Signal Hill. They did all of the background work and recruiting and, soliciting responses. And then they presented that to Metro. And then that in turn was presented to the council.
So Signal Hill was supposed to do the due diligence to determine that this was not a particularly good operator.
I don't know specifically what Signal Hill's role was at the time.
They received $1 million from Metro government. Is there a contract as to what they were supposed to do and obligated to do?
Yes, there would be a contract with Signal Hill.
Can we see that, please?
I can find a copy of that, sure.
And if I recall, there's not an obligation for them to do a due diligence process. They explicitly said that would be up to Metro to do that.
Okay, so they were given $1 million to solicit people who would be senior care assisted living providers for this
Well, the
location?
The bulk of it is the nursing home, which we already have. I mean, the same operator continues to do that. The Knowles home was a smaller
Okay.
piece of that.
I apologize, I'm not familiar with the distinction there. And then can you just then speak to this RFQ procurement process and how that factored in to this situation?
We can send the council the RFQ that went out and the responses. Metro has all of that documentation, and we can email that out to the council. That will show the various proposals that were submitted. And I believe in the end, there were a couple that, of the finalists that decided they either couldn't get the capital to move forward or for whatever reason elected not to go further.
Okay, and then just to clarify, Metro administered the RFQ procurement process.
Metro contracted with Signal Hill to do that work. And then Metro selected, the administration selected the two entities that were going to operate it, or the consortium of entities, and that was presented to the council, and the council voted to approve the agreements.
Okay, again, though, the council did not vote on awarding Signal Hill $1 million to administer an RFQ and procurement process.
No.
And is that typical?
The council does not approve all contracts. In fact, I mean, if it is through the procurement process, through purchasing, or if it is a consultant that is hired, a professional consultant, those don't go to council, no.
Okay, so this was a contractual hiring of a professional consultant. There was not a procurement process for the procurement process?
There may have been. I don't know. I was not there at the time, but I can find that out.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Gilmore.
Thank you. I just wanted to hear a little bit more about, I guess the first one you were talking about bill construction in the first audit, and I'll have to go look for that one. And you had said something about when you had asked for the minority participation.
No, it wasn't minority, it was the unsuccessful bidders documentations.
Okay. And so if you could just explain that a little bit more and talk about what the recommendations were for that. I want to hear a little bit
Our
more.
recommendation was that we require our contractors, when they do a competitive bid through competitive sealed bids, that they retain all the documentation so you can have proof that the low bidder or the whatever process that was done to evaluate that there's something to support all that information going forward. One of the things that's interesting is that once you get a construction manager, their commitment was only to do competitive procurement. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sealed bid. They could do whatever method they wanted to, but we're trying to encourage that going forward, that they do competitive sealed bids going whenever possible. So when you're spending $65 million, you'd hope that it's all going to be competitive bid through sealed bids, where it makes sense.
And so how do we hold how do we ensure that that's done? Does it become policy, or are these just recommendations? I'm not clear about that part. Is that something we need to do at the council, or is it a recommendation back to the office and the Office of Finance does it, or procurement? How do we know that that's done?
In the sense of requiring sealed bids, if that's what you want, that would probably take a change in law or of some sort to have that going forward for construction projects.
Okay, and you said it was $65 million?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Council Lady. Back to Councilman, a little bulky here, Leonardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think from what we've heard, we know that this was a debacle on a couple of fronts. I mean, obviously, there's a malfeasance on the money, but the residents weren't being taken care of. And at the time, they were spending $1.80 a day to feed these individuals in my district. But I know there's money in this year's budget, and this question is for Attorney Cooper. And so I guess my question would be, you know, and this is not an indictment of Dr. Brunet or of Mr. Anthony Mays, who's operating over at Signature. They're both doing good jobs, but there's needs that they have, and there's money that they're requesting from the Metro government that was approved in this year's budget. What are we going to do any different? I mean, are we just going to, how are we going to follow up? We're not just going to cut the checks. If they need a new air conditioner, here's $150,000 out of the million or whatever. I mean, what are we doing differently? Because obviously we got to do something different because we've seen this one fell through the cracks.
I'll take that question. The Finance Department has a specific staff member that has been dedicated to go over there and to work with the provider, and we are actually looking at all of those invoices and things as they come through, and there is a great deal of due diligence that is happening on a very, very routine basis. We're out there every couple of weeks digging through details and observing operations, et cetera. So we are very much involved right now.
So you're comfortable that this kind of thing wouldn't happen again with this current process?
As long as we continue to go out there, you know, and remain diligent on checking in, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a quick question. And this could be for, I don't mean to pick on you, Talia. But if anybody from the administration or even from our office, I know after this unfortunate incident happened that we received some additional bids. Is there any way that the council can get a copy of those bids that were sent in afterwards? Because I know we had to find someone temporarily to kind of fix everything while this investigation was going on.
Are you speaking to the RFP for the Knowles home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that has not been released yet.
Oh, has not? Okay.
Are you talking about the interim contract with
Yes, ma'am.
Anthem?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, we have all that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, no problem. If no one else wants it, but yeah, whatever you get, it's not a rush. When we get a chance, I'd like to get some copies of those.
We can give you all that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Glover?
Thank you, Chair. I want to go back to this trust issue one more time. How many of the residents that we found the deficiencies on are TennCare or on TennCare?
I can't give you an exact number. If I remember right, we were saying there were about 40% were on TennCare.
Okay, so Attorney Cooper and Mr. Jameson, I'm not an attorney, and so I'm going to ask you the process. If we have TennCare, that involves federal dollars, and I'm starting to get a little bit better feel for what kind of trust I think maybe some of these residents had. The Attorney General, if there is in fact a Medicaid type of fraud that's occurred here, and I'm not saying there is, I'm simply saying that it smells like there might be something out there, especially if it involves trust, if it involves Medicaid funds and monies being commingled and things of that nature, then it certainly raises red flags for me everywhere. At what point does this go outside of the scope of just Metro and become state and federal, state and federal jurisdiction come into play?
Well, I don't think this would involve any Medicaid because this was not payments to the facility for care. This is kind of like actually the camp canteen analogy that Mr. Swan made is pretty accurate. This is money that was put into these accounts for incidental expenses, going to the store, vending machines, that kind of thing.
So there wasn't an actual trust document that was done, and so it's really like sub-accounts then?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
These were accounts that the patients had, that it was supposed to be segregated specifically for them. In this case, those funds were commingled with the general operating funds. There's no evidence that any patients lost their or were not provided their money when they requested it. And I mean, we wouldn't be talking about a large amount of money in each of these accounts. I mean, because they are just for incidental expenses.
Okay, well, because of what I do, that when I hear the word trust, I assume that there's an actual trust document. So, okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilor Weiner?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. You know, this experience behooves us to look at some sort of monitoring plan for any outsourced contract. I respect and appreciate all the work you did, Mr. Swan, and the notion that we need to look at high-risk contracts. I think every contract is high risk because it's taxpayer money that's involved. And so my question would be to Metro Legal and/or Metro Finance. I'd like to know what that future plan looks like insofar as outsourced contracts being monitored. Is there going to be a special reporting mechanism put in place? And if we don't have a monitoring plan currently, when can we get one? And when can one be presented, either that is currently in existence or is being worked on? When can that be shared with council?
In terms of finances monitoring plan, we're putting together that criteria, and as Mr. Swan noted, we've given him a deadline as to when we're going to respond to him exactly what that process looks like. But I'd also like to repeat something that he said earlier in regard to general metro contracts. Most of those contracts that Metro enters into for contract monitoring purposes, the departments are responsible for doing that monitoring. Because there are, Michelle, how many contracts do we have in Metro? Thousands. She said 1,500 active contracts. So for instance, water services would have expertise around monitoring some specific engineering contract that finance wouldn't have any level of expertise in assessing whether or not they are doing what they're supposed to do. So, so some of that responsibility is going to have to go to the departments in terms of trying to figure out what those types of contract monitoring needs are. And I don't think that finance could be in a position to say what that, we can make some recommendations and provide some general guidance. And we could do that in collaboration with Mr. Swan, because I know that he's very familiar with certain types of risk and risk models that you should use to help determine what specific criteria should be reviewed. So we could actually work with him on maybe coming up with that general guidance around what should be looked at a minimum. And I do want to give him an opportunity to respond to that, since I've mentioned him a couple of times in my remarks.
Again, we recommended that there be a monitoring plan. The high-risk part was on the due diligence process. Not every contract of a small dollar value requires doing a background check, because there's an expense incurred for doing so. But for once dealing with outward service to the public, definitely we need to have some kind of due diligence process, and finance is committed to doing so going forward. In the monitoring, I came from the city of San Antonio. As part of our procurement process, the life cycle, you have performance monitoring as part of that life cycle in that procurement document, and Metro doesn't have that, or we just kind of stop at once the contract's let out. Now, again, the department should be responsible, but there should be some guidance in our procurement process to show that, you know, the next step is go through an abstract of that contract. What are the requirements? What are the performance requirements? What's our plan? How often should we go and monitor to ensure performance on these contracts?
So, Chair, I think that that's great. I think that it makes perfect sense. All this speaks to is due diligence and respectful oversight of taxpayer money. And, you know, I'm not going to speak to the inadequate care that these people received, because I know that we're managing that. But what was alarming to me was the fact that, as Mr. Swan said, once we procure it and put out the contract, we're done. And so performance, it should be all across the board. And so it may look different from council to water to public works, but I think that there's got to be an overarching continuum of what that looks like. And so if we can have some broad stroke guidelines that each department has to adhere to, even to the reporting standard. And I hate to go back to report, but that's what we have to do. So to that end, when might we consider having this come back before this committee so that we can hear what steps have been taken and what this might look like moving forward? What's realistic and reasonable?
When you're recommending follow-up and follow-up on
Absolutely.
the timetable. Talia, did you have an estimate or?
I don't recall what deadline I gave to Mark in terms of our response, but we would definitely not be prepared to come back before we had gone through that process.
Right. That makes sense.
So I will endeavor to encourage
It was
this follow-up.
October 31st was your deadline.
Okay. All right. All right. And
Thank
then
you.
our last speaker is Councilman Schulman.
Gotta fix this thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One last question, Mr. Swan. So your chart on page 3 is the disbursement category, and it talks about examples of disbursements without documentation between certain dates. For some of them, I know you probably can't tell me what happened to them, but some, are you able to tell us exactly what it was for? There may not have been any documentation, but obviously $20,008 to Shelby County government. Do you know what that was for?
I do not know exactly. I do know the operator had some issues with a former business venture in Shelby County. By testimonial evidence, it was reported as being a payroll loan.
But we know, you know it went to Shelby County government.
Yes, sir.
But can you not talk to Shelby County government and find out exactly what it was for?
We can continue, yes, we could.
The same thing with the clerk, a U.S. District Court settlement for Green Hill Senior Health Center. What did that have to do with Autumn Hills?
That was the licensed administrator that was on staff. That was his former daycare center, so he had a settlement agreement that he had to do for I think it was an employment-related issue.
So they were paying for things that weren't necessarily related to Autumn Hills. It was for other
Correct.
things.
And let me add on to, one of the things was that none of the licensed administrator or the manager or the operations were receiving any kind of salary or compensation benefits, so they kind of looked at some of this as being their compensation.
So I don't know if it's appropriate, but I mean, for any ones that are actually named, is it appropriate to ask you if you don't mind going back and just coming back and telling us exactly what it was used for? The ones that you can actually name and go check.
I can give you more details on that.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm detecting a strong interest in lots of follow-up, and we will try to make that happen. Want to thank everybody who's been most patient with this. Thank you, Mr. Swan. And we're going to move on to the last part of our program today. We are running a little bit late. And then with Michelle, if you all would come forward and introduce everybody that's going to present to us on the benchmark, the report back to the benchmark on minority business practices. And again, our new Director of Procurement, I want to welcome her to our committee. And your microphone should be on, and there is a slide presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Hernandez-Lane. I serve as Metro's Chief Procurement Officer and Purchasing Agent as of July 5th this year. I'm happy to be here today to talk with you a little bit about our efforts around minority and women-owned business inclusion within the city. Back about 3 weeks ago, I believe, at a presentation of the Minority Caucus, Councilman Cooper asked if I would come to this Budget and Finance Committee meeting to discuss our efforts around minority women-owned business inclusion and the disparity study work that we're doing. Specifically, this council appropriated during this current budget process funds for us to engage in a subsequent disparity study as well. I know that during his introduction, Councilman Cooper specified our benchmarking analysis, and for those members of this committee and the larger council who are not familiar, the ordinance that creates our procurement non-discrimination program requires that every other year that we engage in a process that is called benchmarking. That process really serves to help us understand how we're doing in terms of achieving the availability, or I'm sorry, the utilization of minority and women-owned firms consistent with their availability in the marketplace. And it establishes benchmarks for us to engage in that same process for the next period. At the onset of our program, that was an annual process, and what we learned during that those first few years of administration was that an annual process was not very intuitive, in that it didn't provide us with an opportunity to take what we learned from the previous benchmarking process and give us the kind of time that we needed to actually make any improvements from any recommendations that might also be present in that analysis. So the council approved a modification of that process from annual to every other year, which is the process that we're engaged in now. Griffin & Strong, which is the firm that worked with our law department to create the procurement non-discrimination program, has also been conducting those benchmark analyses, looking exactly at how the city's been doing. They have completed the most recent benchmarking analysis, which has been turned over to the city earlier this month for review, and consistent with the rules that are laid out in the code for how we manage that process. We are looking at the results of that benchmarking analysis and preparing to make a recommendation to the finance director regarding the benchmark analysis, and we'll be putting that information forth on our website, as is also called by the code, for a 10-day public inspection process. So we are not quite at the place where we're ready to put that on the website for public inspection just yet, in so much as we are still reviewing the content of the benchmark analysis. But consistent with the code, we will be placing that information after the review of the finance director for public inspection on our website, which is the public methodology that we've chosen to do that. One of the things that came out of that conversation with the Minority Caucus members was that why are we engaging in yet another disparity study? Why do we need a disparity study? Didn't we just do this, and didn't we do it very shortly before the last time we did it? And the answer is we have conducted 2 previous disparity studies, but there is a legal standard that we need to meet when we look at these kinds of programs, and honestly, we're somewhat behind the curve in terms of having conducted our most recent disparity study. I could really sit here and attempt to tell you all about it, but consistent with the request of that caucus, I have requested that Mr. Rodney Strong, who is the managing attorney and public policy consultant for Griffin & Strong PC out of Atlanta, to really come and talk more with you about that process, what it entails, and what the expectation should be from you as council members. The request really came, can't we have some kind of a workshop, if you will, that really helps us understand what disparity studies are and why are we doing this yet again. And so in order for you all to get the information that you need to really understand that process and be able to really hold us accountable, we're here to present that information and the details of that for you here today. So what I'd like to do is to really kind of make this presentation in tandem, but largely leaning to Mr. Strong to present the details of our approach to launch this disparity study process, and to help express to you what your expectations should be.
Good afternoon, members of council and members of the public. My name is Rodney Strong, and I head Griffin & Strong PC. We're a law and public policy consulting firm based in Atlanta. We've done a lot of work in this area over the last 25 years, and we've done a good bit of work for Metro Nashville government, including doing a previous disparity study, a number of benchmarkings, and we drafted the current ordinance that is in place here in Metro government. And so we've got a strong team that's working on this particular project. We got 5 attorneys, 2 PhDs in economics and a PhD candidate in anthropology, all of whom have a lot of experience in this area. And we've just worked really hard to try to put together a good program for you. I want to describe a little bit about the disparity study process, and then I want to spend a minute talking about what is a disparity study and why should you do one. The technical approach to doing this particular disparity study has a number of steps, and I'm just going to, go through them relatively quickly, hopefully not spending a lot of time on them, and then we'll come back to a couple of the ones I think are particularly important for you as elected officials to understand. We're doing a legal analysis, which is basically looking at all of the more recent cases that have come out in the Sixth Circuit and in the state of Tennessee. We're also conducting a policy and procurement process review, which means that we're looking at all of the procurement policies and processes that Metro Nashville government engages in and trying to analyze what the impact of those are. We also then look at all of the data, and so what we do is a process where we collect as much of the data as possible. We do a data assessment report. We then get it approved by Metro. We go back through another process by which we do a data collection plan. We get that approved by Metro, and then we collect the data. Once we get the data, we go through an electronic cleaning process with the data. We have data analysts that do that. And from there, we do what's called a relevant market analysis. We determine where Metro government obtains most of its purchasing from in a particular procurement category. Where do most of your general contractors come from? Where do most of your electrical contractors come from? Where do you buy other goods and services? We then do a utilization analysis, an availability analysis, the disparity analysis, a private sector analysis, and then we do a number of anecdotal interviews. We interview people in the marketplace to determine what's going on, what's really happening with businesses in the marketplace, and then we do a final report and recommendation. And I just want to spend a minute talking about what a disparity study is and why you have to do them and why you have to continue to do them, why they have to be done on a periodic basis. Disparity studies really form basis for any type of remedial program that looks at issues of race and gender in public contracting. There was a case that came out in 1989, City of Richmond versus J.A. Croson Company. And some of you may be familiar with the case. Some of you may not be familiar with it. But the Supreme Court basically ruled that any type of program to remediate for historic discrimination against minorities or women had to have a factual basis, that there had to be a legitimate basis that had to be determined using the highest legal standard for constitutional analysis, which is a strict scrutiny standard. And so basically, the strict scrutiny standard after the Croson case applies to any race-based program involving government procurement of goods and services. And the court said a lot of different things. At the time that decision came out, I was heading up the program for the city of Atlanta. And in our response to Croson, when we did our initial analysis, one of the things that was noted was that there was a historic history of discrimination, but there were also current situations where discrimination continued to occur and where we observed it in the marketplace. And the study determined that. But what the courts have said is that any type of remedy that you choose has to be narrowly tailored in such a way that it's going to address the specific things that you find. So after a short period of time, usually most courts accept 5 to 7 years is considered a reasonable time, you have to go back and analyze the initial basis for any program that you put in place. So that really is the basis for continuing to have to do follow-on, what we call follow-on disparity studies after an initial disparity study has been done. So basically, this strict scrutiny standard is the most stringent judicial standard, and it basically requires that we determine whether there is a compelling governmental interest, which is basically a legal term of art that means that the government has to act in order to deal with specific problems that are in the marketplace. And then that remedy has to be determined to be very narrowly tailored just to address those specific identified instances of either discrimination or the present effects of past discrimination that still linger in your procurement process. And so the benchmarking process, the way Metro Nashville's ordinance was drafted in the first place was to require annual, and now it's a biannual benchmarking process. The idea is that we can modify, make adjustments, and ensure that any goals that are set are narrowly tailored to address what we found in the initial disparity study. But after a period of time, of course, the disparity study becomes what's considered to be stale, and therefore there's a need to do a new disparity study. I believe the last disparity study for Metro Nashville now has been over 10 years ago.
2002.
And so I think we started in 2002, completed in 2004. The purchasing policy, I'm just going to hit on a couple of the things I already mentioned in the previous chart. Purchasing policies and practices. Basically, what we do is we talk to everybody who's involved in the procurement process. We interview them. And then we make a determination as to whether or not any of these policies present a barrier in and of themselves to minority and women-owned businesses. Secondarily, we interview the procurement personnel, make a determination. Do you fully understand the policies as they're written? Sometimes what we find is that employees have gotten used to doing things in a certain way. Council might have passed an ordinance that says you have to do it in another way, but they've never been trained to do it in a new way, and so their understanding of what they're supposed to be doing conflicts with what the actual policy of Metro might be. And we're always looking to see if the procurement practices match Metro's written policies. And so that's part of what we do in this process. Now, once we complete the study, we will work with Metro so that we will review the findings and recommendations, and then we'll consult on the release of the study so that the study will be presented in a way similar to what Michelle was talking about a minute ago with regard to the annual benchmarkings that we do, so that we're in sync with the release of that study. And then, of course, we will talk about what steps need to be taken to address anything that's found in this new study. We're in the process of conducting it. We don't know what we're going to find. But whatever we find, we'll make recommendations that are specific and narrowly tailored to address the findings of that particular study. And then I just want to give you a quick idea about the timeline. We're in the process of data collection right now through September. From September to March, we're going to be doing a statistical analysis. From December through March, we're going to be looking at anecdotal evidence collection and analysis. In January, we're going to be holding public hearings. We're going to be widely advertising those prior to the holidays and through into January. The private sector analysis we expect to complete in March, and then we expect to, by next June, to have a final report and recommendations in the Metro. We're also doing assessment and timeline. We're doing the Minority Enterprise Growth and Needs Study, and we're working with Tennessee State University to do that. And what we're doing with that is really we're looking to survey what's available in the marketplace. What's out there in the marketplace in terms of minority businesses? What exists? What about those businesses that haven't always made a conscious effort to do business with the government? Can they be given incentives to do business with the government? Is there a bigger marketplace than we realize? So we're analyzing that. The timeline for that part of the study is we're launching a survey with Tennessee State in September. Tennessee State students will be canvassing in October. And then we'll close the online survey and canvassing in November. We'll deliver the tables in January. The draft report will be delivered in February, and that report will be in before the disparity study. In other words, we'll turn that report in March of 2018. And what I have done here in this last chart is just gives you a sort of a visual representation of what's going on with both efforts that we're doing simultaneously. So it shows you we've had the kickoff already. We're doing data assessment, data collection, and then we're launching the survey. This is in the summer. And then, of course, we're going through the fall and the winter, and finally wrapping up in the spring by completing the Megan study in March and completing the disparity study in June. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time about my project team. We've done studies in a lot of different jurisdictions, including in Tennessee. We've recently completed last year a study for the city of Memphis, which was, I think, our second study for the city of Memphis in the state of Tennessee. But our local partner, Tennessee State University College of Business, Dr. Millicent Grade Lowndes Jackson, who's the dean of the Tennessee State University College of Business, she's working with us on this Megan study. Just wanted to point that out. And then Michelle Clark Jenkins is our project manager. From time to time, some of you might end up interacting with her because she's my day-to-day person on this particular project. And Dr. Gregory Price is going to be doing our private sector analysis. He's the former dean of the business school at Morehouse College. He currently teaches at Morehouse College and has done quite a bit of work in this area for us. And then I want to mention Dr. J. Vince Egan, who is both an attorney and an economist. He's testified in several major cases, including the controlling case in the Fourth Circuit. So we've got a really strong team we're proud of. Our deputy project manager, who you'll also probably interact with, is Sterling Johnson. And then I'm going to wrap up. Imani Strong Tucker is going to write our anecdotal chapter. Felicia Loeschutter is our data analyst. Tanisha Jones, another data analyst. And Dave Maher is our legal analyst. She's already done a substantial amount of legal research and will continue to do so during the course of the project. And Susan Johnson is administering the project for us. So I just wanted to give you all an overview about the project and what we were doing on this particular project. I'm sure some of you will have questions, and I'll be happy to answer any of them.
So thank you. I know there will be questions from the council. While speakers are, council members are thinking through their questions, I wanted to recognize and ask if they would just comment on the back, both Alex Kaur and Don Majors. The NAACP here has really put an enormous amount of effort and getting the community to understand the importance of this work. And I would just love, I'm going to ask them to have a quick comment themselves from their perspective of working on this. And I see former Councilman Wallace with them, and then former Councilman Majors and Alex Kaur. If you all would make a comment. Thank you before we get started.
Councilman Wallace and myself, we're going to defer to our co-chair of the Economic Development Committee, Alex Kaur.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. We represent the NAACP Economic Development Council. We have listened to the presentation about a disparity study. Well, that's all and good, but Metro has not lived up to the responsibility for 2008. Okay, they passed procurement non-discrimination legislation, and it has not had the effective opportunity to produce the results it was intended to do. Our analysis of the information that we have received in our discussion from minority and women-owned businesses show that there are a number of loopholes that prime contractors use on a frequent basis to eliminate the opportunity for Black and women-owned business and other minority businesses to participate. We submitted to you previously documentation, which is Metro government's own documentation, which also includes the 2014 and 2012 benchmark results, which show without a doubt that Metro Nashville minorities and women are underutilized consistently year after year after year. So this we see as another effort to stall the process. We believe that the issue that our hand needs to be addressed in a timely fashion, and it requires total focus from the Metro Council and the Mayor's office to deliver Nashville to a place where it can be considered its city, where diversity is embraced and supported. Okay? This is not our information. This is not the data that we created. This is the Metro government's own data. Take a look at it. As Mr. Strong indicated, you did the disparity study in 2002 and ended in 2004. You passed legislation in 2007, 2008 for procurement non-discrimination to level the playing field. Well, it didn't happen. In those years, Black and women-owned businesses have lost ground. Not my data, Metro Nashville government's data. Okay? Black-owned businesses has only received 2.88% of the total contract award over the last 5 years. Not my data, Metro Council data. Women, non-ethnic women-owned business has received just 2.99% of all Metro contract awards over the last 5 years. And the only businesses that are gaining traction are male-dominated businesses. That's not my data, that's Metro data. Okay, we don't see where another procurement non-discrimination study that's going to take another year is going to show us anything different. We have solicited and requested the 2016 benchmark. Now, we participate as part of another group, Citizens for a Better Nashville. We were told that the 2016 benchmark report would be available in November 2016. Now, this is August, almost September 2017, and we still have not seen it. We have submitted a Freedom of Information request to Michelle Lane to obtain that information so we can review it. Now, it is very difficult for us to understand how progress has been made when the results are clearly here. These are reports that get sent to the council on a regular basis, and when we start doing Freedom of Information requests, it jumps out after us. Now, hopefully, everyone has had an opportunity to read and review the information that we put together. We took a substantial amount of time to reach out to different municipalities to look at the type of legislation that they have implemented. And we identified a solution in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's called the Business Inclusion Program. Charlotte, North Carolina has a demographic very similar to Nashville, Tennessee, okay? And what they found after several disparity studies is that, again, Charlotte-Mecklenburg County was not a place where equity has taken place, all right? So they implemented an inclusion plan that has specific goals and objectives. Now, what we're looking for is we believe that the NAACP Economic Committee, working hand in hand with the council and the mayor's office, can help deliver new legislation that has teeth. The current procurement non-discrimination program has no teeth. It's based on good faith. And we know there's a lot of contractors, and you discussed some of them, that don't have true moral integrity in mind. And that's what we're seeing in a lot of cases. They present a good story, but the results don't support the act. Now, we're asking this council to look at the documentation that we have prepared, to demand a copy of the 2016 benchmark report, and if it's like the 2014 benchmark report, there's a lot of red, and red don't mean good. So we're just asking you to focus on making Nashville the city that supports its diversity. We got enough trouble in this nation, but Nashville can set itself apart from other cities by doing the right thing, addressing its diversity problem. Not only is it in purchasing, it's in policing, it's in human rights, it's in affordable housing, it's across the board. Now, Nashville is my hometown. I was born 67, almost 68 years ago. And I know what it's like to be coming up in Jim Crow time. Now, I don't expect my children and grandchildren have to come back and face this kind of disparity in the year 2017. Okay, we are taxpayers, we're honest, abiding citizens, and we expect our elected officials to do the right thing. Review the data. It's not our data. All we did is present it and package it in a form that hopefully makes it easier to understand.
So thank you. If you all, Mr. Kaur, if you would stay available to answer questions, we have got a lot of council questions here.
We'd be happy to.
Thank you. We'll go on to Councilman Davis, sir, first questioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Got a couple of statements to ask. You know, if that makes sense. Got a couple of questions, Ms. Lane. When do you think we could see the 2016 study?
The benchmark analysis?
Yes, ma'am.
I hope that we will have that review completed here to the finance director and available for public consumption within the next week.
No problem. Thank you. I'm not sure, Mr. Jameson, if you could help me here. Maybe a couple months ago, or maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months ago, the NAACP sent out an example of what Charlotte's doing. And just reading over it over the weekend, a couple months ago, it was over Saturday, then a Sunday, and reading through it, I really like some of the things that they're doing. And I know that we're waiting to look at the benchmarks. And I know that I sent it on, I asked Mike, and he was very helpful in working to try to figure out how can we implement some of those things that are working. And I know you just recently got this position. Were you able to take a look at those?
I did take a look at the information that Mr. Kaur sent some time ago, looking specifically at the business inclusion program that he noted with the city of Charlotte. One of the basic elements of that program and the requirement of that program is that minority-owned, women-owned businesses also have to be classified as small businesses. And here within Metro, we have a separate approach for small businesses. So everything that we do related to the procurement non-discrimination program and the percentages that we present to the Procurement Standards Board and publicly are related just to minority and woman-owned businesses, regardless of their size. And I think that that's an important distinction to understand.
Okay, and this may be a legal question. Is there a way, Mr. Jameson or Mr. Cooper, that we could implement stuff that we like from Charlotte before, if the study, before the study comes, if the study, not by any fault by your office, Ms. Lane, if we don't get the study, let's say in a month or 2 months, are there things that can we implement legislatively inside our code, Mr. Jameson?
Sure. The Charlotte ordinance is, as you know, fairly complicated, and our equivalent is in Title II, but we could certainly amend our Title II to incorporate or adopt provisions in the Charlotte Code.
Yeah, Councilman Davis, could I respond also to your point about Charlotte?
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to make a couple of points about Charlotte because I'm very, very familiar with Charlotte, and that has to do with two things. One, they're currently conducting a disparity study, which is due to be completed in the next few months. My firm is not doing it, but we bid on it. So I was very familiar with their process. But I've been working really closely with Charlotte over the last few months. Charlotte was one of 5 cities that were selected as part of an organization called Living Cities, has a procurement inclusion cohort, and our firm is serving as the expert lead for that cohort. So we actually spent a day in Charlotte last month with the chief procurement officer, chief financial officer, the person who runs their supplier diversity program, and number of their officials going over how they can improve their program. They're going to probably be modifying it somewhat once they get their new disparity study in. But I can say this, what Charlotte is doing, what makes Charlotte interesting, and I think the reason that Charlotte was selected as part of the cohort is that Charlotte has recognized that they are very far behind the curve in terms of mobility for minority individuals moving from into especially their youth. It's very little chance that youth who are born poor will advance and do better. And they've made a basic commitment across a number of different mechanisms, including using their anchor institutions and the city government to try to modify it. I think that there are some things, some elements in their program that probably could be helpful here, so that once we fit the process of completing the study here and we make recommendations, we'll certainly be looking really closely at their program. And we, like I said, we have a relationship with them. We're working with them right now. And so it's not going to be hard for us to make sure that we do a good job of incorporating what, on a consensus basis, we agree are the better elements of their program.
Last question. Have you seen Jacksonville's study? I've heard good stuff about that one, too.
Yeah, I personally haven't read Jacksonville's most recent study.
I was just going to say that I'm very familiar with the programmatic approach that Jacksonville has. In fact, when we were looking at the establishment of a programmatic approach here in Nashville, that was one of the peer cities that we went to and that we took a look at.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Councilman, and Councilman Leonardo. If I can get this machine to function. There we are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate everybody, being here and presenting this information. But I guess this question is to you, Mr. Strong. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of legal issues here, okay? And so we know that we have a problem. The question is, what's that remedy look like that's going to be legally enforceable? And just like when you're dealing with affordable housing and the concentration of poverty, you can't just say there's going to be an equal number of affordable houses in every council district, right? It seems simple enough, seems like a great answer, but it doesn't always work. So what you're telling me, though, is that there's some kind of fundamental right here that's using the strict scrutiny test. And so is that right, the freedom to contract? Is that what?
Yeah, and from a legal standpoint, just specifically, these types of programs were developed with an assumption. The assumption was there was a history in a number of jurisdictions of de jure segregation, and minorities were, by law, restricted from doing business with the government, even though they paid taxes. And so there was an assumption that you can set up a program that would give preferential treatment to minority businesses in certain ways by setting goals for the usage of minority businesses. The that practice was challenged before the Supreme Court. It was challenged several times. The initial time that it was challenged, the court agreed that there could be remedial programs to address issues related to minority businesses. And that was a case that came out in about 1982. 1981, 1982 from the Supreme Court. When the Croson decision came out, the controlling case now, which is now the Supreme Court precedent in this area, the court made a distinction, and this is an equal protection analysis under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. And they made a distinction where they basically said you cannot make a distinction between benign discrimination, discrimination designed to remedy past discrimination, discrimination designed to help somebody, and malign discrimination, discrimination that's designed to hurt someone, and that the same test has to be applied, which is one of strict scrutiny. There was a lot of argument in the court. It was a 5-4 decision. There was a very strong dissent that was written by Justice Thurgood Marshall, where he argued very strongly that you should be able to make a distinction on that level and not require strict scrutiny. But that wasn't the position that prevailed. So once that analysis prevailed, the question became, how do you address this requirement? And so a number of lawyers who looked at this made the determination that you had to do some type of analysis, because the court set out certain criteria in the case. They said you have to look at the availability and the utilization of minority businesses versus non-minority businesses in the marketplace to determine whether or not there has been or continues to be discrimination. They use two phrases: discrimination or the present effects of past discrimination in the marketplace. And so in doing that type of analysis, it requires you to actually look at who bid, so you determine availability, and then who actually got contracts. So you're looking at utilization, and you compare those, and you do what's called a disparity analysis. The court sort of lays that formula out, and it's been fleshed out in subsequent years by lower court decisions that have interpreted various parts of it that have been litigated. We've been successful, I think, here in Nashville by putting together a program that we felt was legally sustainable. You haven't experienced any challenges to the program. The program still is viable. And we're trying to make sure now that the program is more effective going forward so that you get more participation while staying within constitutional bounds.
And that's a great answer. I appreciate that. And one thing I think would be helpful, and we have some good lawyers here in the council. If you, because I know you already have this, if you had a list of, maybe 10 cases that passed strict scrutiny, that it was narrowly tailored, and that, I think a lot of times you can go back and look at cases that have been upheld or remedies that have been found favorable to kind of potentially model some of the legislation that we may be looking at. So I'm sure you already have those, and it may be helpful to some of the council members if we had maybe a list of 10 cases that you think are really, that were upheld, the legislation was upheld.
Yeah, we've actually done a legal analysis specifically looking at the Sixth Circuit. And so we've got that legal analysis already done. And in addition to that, Dr. Egan, that I mentioned earlier, was the expert witness in the controlling case in the Fourth Circuit. The North Carolina DOT program was challenged, and it was litigated, and it went to the Fourth Circuit, and it was upheld. And so we've got, even though this is a different circuit, we've got people on our team who have actually litigated these cases at a very high level.
That would be helpful. I know we got a great lawyer, Mr. Jameson, but he's got 40 clients, so we might be able to help him out a little bit. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilor Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a quick question, and thank you so much for being here. You had mentioned that you were going to have TSU students doing some canvassing. How do you determine who they canvass?
So the Minority Enterprise Growth and Needs Study segment of this falls within the anecdotal section of the study that Mr. Strong talked about. And this process is really a little different for us, just to give you a little bit of background, because the way that the anecdotal piece of this process works is that typically we have public hearings and we may have interviews, but what we're looking at now is what kinds of things even prohibit minority-owned businesses from finding their way to be able to compete for work. What kinds of barriers have inhibited their growth? And so we're engaging in a survey process and then canvassing segments of the minority business community to encourage those folks to respond to the surveys. So we're looking at some specific I keep wanting to call it the SMOBI-WOBI data, but it's the U.S. Community Survey segment of the census, looking at what the response rate is in terms of the numbers of those businesses, and then actually kind of just looking very specifically at, business data, doing web searches, understanding where some of those businesses are, working with resource groups that serve minority businesses, and then canvassing those folks to get them to respond to that survey and to ensure that they're having their voices heard in terms of the kinds of issues that really that they report inhibit their growth and development.
So you'll be reaching out to, as you said, community groups like women's groups, women's business groups?
Well, this piece is specifically focused on minorities as it was expressed in that process. So we'll be looking, to partner with, the Minority Enterprise. The Minority Business Center is one of those. I see Marilyn Robinson here in the back, getting names of folks from them, looking also at, the Nashville Business Incubation Center, other organizations that specifically serve that demographic of business owner.
Great, thank you, I appreciate your help.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Council Lady. Council Lady Gilmore.
Thank you so much. I appreciate Mr. Strong being here. So I think, and I want to thank you, Chair, for having this as well. I guess the frustration for me is that I've been on the council for 9 years, and I remember when you were here, Mr. Strong, and you had black hair. I didn't have any gray hair in my head, and now I got some gray hair in my head, and I just don't think we are making the gains that we need to. And this summer, a couple of council members and myself, we were actually at our National League of Cities conference, which is for black elected officials, and Charlotte was sharing with us what they were doing, and then all the other black elected officials were sharing that they have to do a disparity study, and that they're doing them all over the United States right now. And then they begin to add them up, like just how much they cost, and we're just like, oh my God. So I guess the point is, I think we need to look. There's a couple of things. One, I think we just need to, and I was having like a sidebar conversation with Zach over here, we just need to say black. I don't know why we have trouble saying minority. I mean, we have trouble saying, we just need to say black, because the black people here in the city are not making gains, you know? And we see construction all over the city, and we've seen, and it's not an indictment, but we see construction everywhere that the city has participated in. But when it comes back, the numbers are very low. So we just need to get our hands around it. We know the obvious. Like Mr. Kaur has shared, there's a frustration, and when we as council members go out there, people are eating our butts up, as they obviously should, because they're not making the gains that they need to, and there's a lot of money being spent in the city. Everywhere you go, there's construction. The city has led a lot of those initiatives. So I think we need to get, if it could be more transparent, something that we can enforce. I think we need a little bit more oversight as a council. I think Michelle Lane will do a wonderful job in this position, but I think there's just a frustration there. And we keep on doing these studies. We understand we have to have the data, but we need some action at this point, and we need something that we can implement. And that I think one of the issues is it comes on the back end. So it's broken out so much that we're just approving the contracts. And so when people come back and approve or present what has been approved in terms of black participation, Asian participation, women participation, the numbers are so low, but by that time the money's already been spent. So we need more mechanisms on the front end. And then we need to get it, we do a lot with MDHA. It's hard to get into that and see what's going on. So I think more transparency, more accountability on the front end. I think the political will has to be there. We can't just keep on saying, and it's not, it doesn't fall all on Michelle's office. It doesn't fall on, but there has to be a political will. So we know that there's something systemic. And I was listening to you earlier, you said, historically there has to be, you know, historically we know that there's discrimination here, especially in Nashville. I mean, we know it. We had the 60 marches here. We had people going through the street. I mean, so we know it. So at this point, we just need things that we can implement and that people can see changes that move past the needle of 2% and 5%. We did that big Music City Center, low participation. We did the, well, it wasn't where we wanted it. It was, you know, people may say it. I mean, but when we peel back the numbers, we wanted higher participation. Then we also did the baseball stadium. The numbers that were presented to me, I didn't think they were satisfactory. And I really, you know, Spear or really was a cheerleader, and I still think it's a great baseball park, but the numbers were low. So I said all that to say, we want something that we can use. After we do this study, I get it. You got to do the benchmarks. But if we come back with another 2 or 5%, and we just got gray hair, our facial features are changed, but we're not adding anything new, it's really kind of useless at this point. So we got to really move the needle this time. We have to lean in. We can't, it can't be business as usual. It's just getting too serious. It cannot be. We are probably at our pinnacle in terms of construction and people moving here. So at this time, if we don't do it as Nashville, this is the most opportunity, because everybody's saying we're kind of going on the downswing in terms of our economy. So if we don't hit it for black people, I'm just gonna say what they are, Asians, Native Americans, we're gonna miss it. This is the time right here. And so we need to get that study out, and we just need to move the needle. And those conclude my comments.
If I could, Council Lady, thank you so much for those comments. And I think what you say really echoes some of what I heard from Mr. Strong, and what I see happening here with this administration is an understanding for the need to couple this effort with a broader effort to establish and maintain equity as a whole, especially from an economic development standpoint. So I think the timing is very good for us to be looking at what kinds of efforts we can make to improve where we are now. I don't think anybody is saying that this is good enough. I think we all agree that we have a lot of work to do. And this process is going to enable us to understand exactly what we can do to bring about that equitable development among, minority businesses in Nashville that is consistent with law.
All right, thank you. Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I'm a little perplexed, but anyway, thank you, Mr. Strong and Michelle for being here also, and the NAACP. We're going to do another study in hopes of, I guess, telling us something that we don't already know or confirming what we currently know. I'm a little baffled there. So in the presentation, it was mentioned as it relates to the technical approach, which TSU students would be doing some type of surveys or canvassing. Can you speak to the research methodology and what's the average sample size for this type of, I'm familiar with research, I'm just not familiar with disparity studies. Like what's the average sample size for these type studies and what you consider to be adequate for representation for this particular study for you to provide recommendations back to us so that we make sure that we're getting what we're trying to get as it relates to the study.
Yeah, the Megan study that we're doing, the Minority Enterprise Growth and Needs Study, is actually a separate component from the disparity study. It's something that allows, that Metro decided to do to reach out beyond the typical firms we look at. In a disparity study, what you're really looking at are the firms that have actually presented themselves to the government and made an effort to do business with the government. Basically, your availability pool within the relevant market. What that means is within the area that you normally purchase your particular good or service from. If most of your construction companies come from the metro area, you only count those minority firms that have bid on construction projects within the metro area in the last 5 years. So it sort of limits the pool. And so the desire of Metro was to reach beyond that and try to see what are these other firms that are in the marketplace that might be doing business in the private sector, they might be home builders, they might be other things, but they've decided for whatever reason we don't want to do business with the government. So the canvassing in this instance is to try to get more participation. We're using as base data the census data and also the data that comes in from they've changed Dun and Bradstreet has changed their name now. It's called something else. But anyway, from the commercial providers of business information, and then based on those lists, we'll be trying to increase the number of those firms that will respond to a survey. And so we're going to be trying to just get the highest percentage we can possible. I don't know the exact parameters that they've set. My technical staff would be able to give you that, and I can make sure that I get that to you specifically within the next day or two. Michelle, I'm sure, can provide that for you. Yes, ma'am.
If I could just add something to that, Council Lady, it's going to be a process whereby we reach out to a variety of these minority businesses that are existing in the community, but they opt into their response. So they're going to be specifically, we're not going to, of course, be forcing their response. And even through the canvassing process, when we connect with them, it will be for the purpose of reiterating, the survey, and we need your responses so that we can understand what kinds of things we can do to help lessen those barriers. But it will be based upon their opting in.
Thank you. We've got 4 more speakers. We've been running a little bit late. Councilman Kendall?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you all for being here. I got here a little late, so you may have already discussed some of the concerns that I'll express. But I'm looking at the 2.88%, and obviously, without study or anything, we know that is a figure that is unacceptable in a city like Nashville. I've often said, I worked in several programs over the years dealing with minority businesses, federal programs, Nashville Business League, Contractors Assistance Center. Also on the school board for 27 years. It has a separate, I think, they set their separate goals and have a separate monitoring system. At least they did when I was on the school board. And we had a goal, I recall, of 10%. And this was just for black businesses, minority businesses in that sense. And we accomplished that. Several years. I don't know how many years it lasted. But we used innovative kind of approaches, like where at one point we had the janitorial services that were bidded out to private sector. Initially, it was bidded on a basis of 10 schools at a time. Well, we didn't have minority businesses who had the wherewithal, black businesses, janitorial business, that could do that. So we broke it down to 3. And we had some success in that. What I'm looking at is, and people have heard me say this often, Nashville is an it city, but it's not it city for everybody, and especially black businesses. You know, there are instances I have heard of where many of the general contractors who are doing large projects, when they seek contractors, many of them, if they're looking for, you know, they have a list of minority contractors, and they may be looking for a masonry contract, and they send out the bid proposal to a drywall contract, you know. And some of that does go on. And you know, I see on here that one of the recommendations by the NAACP is legislation to establish penalties or fines for businesses that willingly circumvent the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish. But I think this council, this city, can look at some innovative ways, and within the law. You know, I understand the strict scrutiny, been through all that with the desegregation years of the Supreme Court. But I just believe that there are a lot of masonry contractors. There are a lot of drywall contractors, painting contractors. These are black contractors. They're very small, but they can do sub work for many of these projects. And they're not on the list. Well, when I say they're not on the radar, because they haven't bidded with the city. You know, they might have bidded with a contractor who's doing the work, but obviously they still don't get on the list, because if they don't get the bid, they're certainly not on the list. But those are the businesses that I see in this city, and I know several of them who are very competent, small businesses who are subcontractors who could perform on many of these major projects. And as the other speakers have said, it's just a lot of work going on in this city, not just in the private sector, but in the government sector, that I don't think we have found ways to really creatively try to seek these contractors. You know, I realize, you know, people will say, well, they're not bonded, they don't have the proper insurance, but those kind of things can be resolved as well, as Mr. Strong probably can tell you. General contractors can cover those bonds. I mean, you know, if they're serious about hiring these people.
Thank you,
Okay,
Councilman.
I'm sorry, I don't want to take all day.
I'm grateful
But
for
it's
every
important.
word. Very quickly, yes, Michelle.
Councilman Kendall, thank you so much for that, for those comments. And I think that what you're saying really kind of undergirds the design that we've taken with this study and the additional minority enterprise growth and needs work that's included in there is to make sure that we know about those businesses, just like you're talking about. The disparity study, is Mr. Strong noted, is very focused on those businesses who have either bid with us or have expressed some interest or desire to bid with government. We want to up the ante by ensuring that we've got a larger critical mass of vendors who could come to the table, and this process will assist us in doing that. And we are, you know, I'm very open to thinking about what kinds of creative things that we can do within law to promote the inclusion of minority and women-owned businesses more so. Several years ago, we did modify the procurement code to change the level of the value of a project requiring bonding. It was set at $50,000. It was doubled to mimic what's in the state law at $100,000. You know, those kinds of things that we can do that reduce those barriers that may be inherent in our procurement process. To the extent that we're able to do that and be consistent with law, I'm very interested in us doing that. So if you have any specific, you know, recommendations, if you've come across any kinds of, you know, suggestions from your reviews of other cities or anything, please feel free to share those with me, because I think we should definitely be taking a look at them.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Council? Yes, right, sorry, David.
Just, we're running really, really far behind. We have 3 other committee meetings, so try and be concise, because we got a lot of people sitting out there who are here so we'll have other opportunities to keep talking about this, but let's try and move on.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Mr. Councilman? All right, Councilman Hastings, hang on 1 second, if I can get your microphone turned on.
Maybe you have a voice that carries.
All right. Thank you. All right, Mr. Chair, just very quick. I don't want the Vice Mayor to get me. But under the state of Tennessee, or you, I know that there were some things that were tried to happen for minority-owned business here in the city before, and the state of Tennessee kicked it back towards us. I just wanted to see, and my question was, is me being in the district that represents the largest, I'm not going to say only minority, but the largest African-American community in the city. We are finding ourselves, I know me personally has been in a place to where I have looked for minority-owned businesses to be a part of other projects. There is no such thing as a list that we have found out. And there is even with the MDHA. So we need to make sure that that list that is there, that is a factual list, and that we're getting it and recorded so that we can have a place to go when those things are needed. That was basically it. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Council Lady Haywood.
Thank you so much, and I'll be very brief. And quite possibly, this has already been articulated, but I'm rather new at this. And I'm just wondering, once all the tools have been used and the data, hypothetically speaking, all the data is in, and you understand what the barriers are, what type of tools are used to ensure, just say you have everything now. It's all in, we understand. All the T's have been crossed, I's have been dotted. I just want to know from past, present, future, what have you, how do you ensure, just like the frustration that Alex Score and the NAACP have voiced, how do you ensure that this whole problem, or not whole problem, but a part of it or what have you, can be rectified?
Yeah, one of the elements or the features of the procurement non-discrimination program that I particularly like is that it is a program in which we manage it on a procurement by procurement basis. And what that means is there are certain requirements on every single solicitation to which the program is applicable, and it allows us to look at those procurements on their face. And so if there are errors or omissions or problems related to the administration of the program or compliance with it, it allows us to look at that specific solicitation and make a determination about whether or not it has been applied appropriately or not, and stop the issue on that specific procurement. So you're not talking about necessarily a whole-scale problem with the program's effort to include minorities and women, but you can really then be able to look at it on a case-by-case basis. And that's one of the things that I think enables us to make decisions about how we go forward, almost, if you will, on the fly. We can look at that specific one and see what works and doesn't work and kind of modify our approach with that solicitation within what the code allows. So that's an important aspect of it. The other thing that I think a lot of people may not be as familiar with is that once you've gotten all of your responses in and we're looking at program application, there's a robust contract compliance effort that happens on the back end. So when I hear, 2.8%, I want people to be clear that we're not talking about only, that we are talking about only Black-owned business, and we need to improve that to be consistent with the availability in the marketplace. But the way that this program works, again, with what Mr. Strong noted, is it's very narrowly tailored. So if the marketplace only yields you 3%, you know, you're seeing a very small area of room to move in terms of what your utilization is consistent with that. If we look at the most recently ended fiscal year, our minority business participation across the board was 8%. You know, so we do have the participation that's there. What the benchmarking analysis will show us is how we did with each individual group meeting the participation numbers based upon the availability of those individual groups within the individual procurement sectors that they represent. So, you know, it is a complex process. It can be very complicated, but it is one that is designed to ensure that we're doing the most we can do within what the law allows.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. I apologize for running so late. I want to thank the Economic Development Committee. Yes, Alex?
Could we, in closing, I want to thank the committee. I want to thank the chairman, Mr. Cooper. I want to thank the committee for listening to our words. We believe there's an immediate need to address what's happening here in Nashville. The data is complete. It's factual. What we want to do is work in conjunction, hand in hand, with the mayor's office, the council, and any interested party in making sure that Nashville lives up to its commitment, okay, of diversity. We would like the council to authorize and conduct a full and detailed audit of Metro purchasing practices and policies over the last 5 years, because we believe that will undergird and demonstrate some of the loopholes that we have been hearing about. Second, we want to work alongside, we would like to work, the NAACP would like to work alongside any other interested party and the council to draft new legislation to eliminate purchasing disparity permanently. Disparity is not something that has to be measured every 5 years if you're achieving a goal, okay? Once Nashville demonstrates itself, okay, and produces numbers that demonstrate that it is reaching out and being effective, we don't see a need for disparity, because the monitoring of the results will be able to support the economic achievements of that activity. And we want you to also follow the money. And what we mean is scrutinize every major financial decision undertaken by Metro Nashville to ensure that its resources and/or tax dollars do not benefit individuals and/or businesses that do not demonstrate and embrace diversity in its business strategy and plan. Okay, we thank you.
I would like to say to the chairman, the vice mayor, and the members of the council, we truly thank you for entertaining us, and we are going to work with you continuously to overcome and to make this a better place, a better city, and better for the minority participation in our procurement process. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank the committee, and with 2 follow-ups, the benchmark to be released within the next week, and then specific suggestions for legislation to make us more effective. I want to thank Michelle and Mr. Strong, and with that, this Budget and Finance Committee is adjourned.